Hello, my name is Jen Gadd. I am so honored to receive my Dharma name today and to be here virtually this morning to talk with you about my Won Buddhism path thus far. My first exposure to Buddhism was through my husband, Anthony. I remember on our very first date about 20 years ago, he talked with me about mindfulness. I had literally never even heard the term before, but I was very curious. After dating for only a few short weeks, Anthony moved away to go to graduate school. He gave me a book just before he left, Awakening the Buddha Within. I still have this book and it is very special to me. I admit it sat on the shelf for years before I really looked through it. But with that book, 20 years ago, the seed of Buddhism was planted in my heart. It's been an amazing journey since then, a journey which has, in a way, led me back to the beginning. That is how I like to approach things at all times now, with the heart of a beginner's mind. Throughout the process of receiving my Dharma name, multiple people asked me how I felt about it. Always the same feeling comes to the surface, a feeling of being at home with the Won Buddhist community. So I have been thinking about the word home and what it is that makes Won Buddhism feel like such a homecoming to me. When I think about the essence, the feeling of home, I can break it up into two distinct, although related components. One component is the secure feeling of belonging, and the other is that home is a safe place to grow. First, about belonging. I think about the first house that Anthony and I owned. At the time, I thought, finally, after several apartments in different cities, we were now proud homeowners. I had a lot of unrealistic expectations about what that was going to feel like, however. More than a year after our big purchase, I stood in the living room and looked around. It still felt nothing like home to me. Our oldest son, Adam, was just a baby then, and the house needed repairs right from the get-go. I had left my job to become a stay-at-home mom. We were short on cash, and I felt a little bit lost. Where was this magazine-inspired home feeling that I was supposed to have? Thankfully, this was right around the time that I started listening to some audiobooks by American Buddhists like Pema Chodron and Tara Brach. I remember the theme throughout these books was that everything that you needed was already inside yourself. The idea that the external is not where one should look for happiness or for answers. It was an extremely novel way for me to look at life and a new way to look at the world. I was raised Christian Roman Catholic, and it was ingrained in me at that time to look to the external to find spirituality. Raised as a pretty hardy Christian, I downright rejected these very basic Buddhist concepts at first as blasphemy, thinking, how egotistical to think that you don't need God to bestow upon you blessings and or hardship. I looked at these Buddhist books as more psychological self-help at this point, not being able to adopt the concepts yet, but definitely benefiting from and marking this time as the beginning of my meditation journey. This early experience with Buddhism helped me understand that there was a spiritual home out there somewhere for me, even if it was going to be a struggle for me to shift the fundamental way that I view the world. So for the next 15 years or so, I navigated through multiple non-denominational Christian churches in both Madison and also here in Chapel Hill. While less dogmatic, I found that as a whole, these churches still sought spirituality in the external. And I continued to read about Buddhism and irregularly meditated. In 2019, I attended a half-day retreat at the Won Temple here in Chapel Hill, and shortly after, I attended the Won Buddhist intro class. I knew I had found my home. I felt like I finally found a place that was in line with both my inquisitive and often rebellious mind. The idea that in Buddhism, you are not given a list of things that you need to believe, but instead you can experience wisdom in the Sangha, in the Dharma, in the interconnectedness of it all. I finally feel like I belong. The other component of the essence of home, as I mentioned in the beginning of my talk, is the feeling of being in a safe place to grow. My very favorite children's song, and one I shared many times with all three of my boys while in their preschool years, is about a boy who asks his mother if he is growing. She tells him, yes, he's growing when he eats and sleeps, etc. But he has his doubts. And throughout the song, he keeps wondering about it. Then one day, he's able to reach the tap in the sink. And it is confirmation to him that he must be growing. I love that song because it really explains in a way how I have grown through Buddhism. About 6 weeks ago, I had to have major surgery. I was extremely anxious, among other things, about being put under general anesthesia for the first time. The morning of my surgery, however, I felt quite calm. With the gentle and kind support of my kids and my husband, Anthony, I was able to be present with my feelings, be mindful of my thoughts, and I felt shockingly calm. I was like the little boy in the song. I was finally able to reach the sink. It is through experiences such as this when I realize that I am growing as a Won Buddhist practitioner. I am becoming more mindful and I am becoming more patient. The Won Buddhist community has and continues to help me to grow and become the best version of myself. I so appreciate you taking the time to listen to my Won Buddhist journey so far. And I hope that you know how important you are to our Won Buddhist community, wherever you may be on your spiritual path. Thank you so much.